I'm a huge fan of historical fiction. I feel like when we read books about history, we learn about ourselves and we learn about, a different time and place, and maybe different people that we're not exposed to. So I love reading historical fiction, but most novels set in the West have been historically written from the male perspective, and they're based on myths, romanticized sort of exaggerations and tall tales. And what we've arrived at is a pretty inaccurate stereotype, which is ingrained into our American collective consciousness of men coming to the West that are strong and brave and they're saviors of women, right? Saviors. And that the women are sort of needy and they need protection and guidance, and they were economically dependent on men and full of innate maternal instincts, and totally content with their domestic role and really didn't care much about their sexuality. Or if they weren't those things, they were wild, sort of hysterical vixens, right? We've all seen that in countless Pulp Fiction, Western novels, and Western movies. But I realized those aren't the women I know in California, and they weren't the women in my family or the women that I grew up with. So I set out to research women in the early West. And what I found is actually there's a much more authentic version of women of the West, or story of women in the West, especially in California. We had agency, independence, choices, and economic power. And really, actually, in 1850, we had more rights than women in any other state. We could own property, we could sign contracts, we could divorce, we could keep the custody of our children, and no other state in America, women could do that. And so in fully understanding that history, that inspired my desire to write a more accurate and fully fleshed out narrative of women in the West.